Welcome to the Red Dice Diaries. This podcast is a rambling journey through the wonderful world of RPGs from the viewpoint of a long-time GM and player. The music at the start of this podcast was Nightmare by Alexander Nakarada and is used under Creative Commons license. Okay, so we're moving on to the week 4 questions. So we've only got week 4 and week 5 to do, Lloyd. Stay with us. Okay, so question 20. Which game mechanic inspires your play the most?
I got this one. It's a strange mechanic because I don't even know if this counts as a mechanic or not. Choosing your race. When it get not like dwarf, elf, what I mean more like, are you white, are you black, are you Caucasian, are you Asian, are you Hispanic, what part of Spain are you from? Because for a very long period of time, pretty much every character I played was black in my head. And it was only when someone pointed this out to me in a mask of all things, I went, wait, Lloyd, all your characters are black. You never distinguish at any point. You're like, yep, my character's black, it's something I do because that's what I'm used to. It's in my head. It's my image. And I was like, no, you can play other races. Like, oh. So, yeah, strangely enough, picking the race that I'm playing as inspires my play the most.
Okay, Johannes?
It's sort of a category of mechanics, I think. So depending on which game, the form that it takes is going to be different, but how is my character not good or how are they flawed? I think that's probably what I attach to the most when it comes to that sort of like character flavor and inspiration. So like what sort of like deficiencies do they have? Are they like let's say again like this backslapper has no end, but the Lamentations game that I'm playing in that John is running, I'm playing a priest of Dagon who is really quite dumb. So that's one of my driving sources of inspiration for it. He just isn't that sharp, and I try to like do the most that I can with that sort of fact, and I think at least I amuse myself a lot with that sort of thing. But it could be any number of mechanics, any sort of flaws, or if you can assign a low stat to a thing, or going back to one of my favorite games of all time, Burning Wheel, I could write down a thing that my character believes, which is a mechanic in Burning Wheel, that's just either just flat out wrong or dumb or horrific, and I can pursue that and probably have some really, really awful shit happen in the game, either to my character or to others as a result of my character having this idea in their head that's just plain wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, in terms of game mechanics, I love any sort of system where you get like a random quirk, or you get a random piece of kit, or like a sort of a choice of a few options. Like in the Tales from the Loop game you ran for us, Lloyd, I love the fact that like my character had a choice of like a dog, a tractor, or a crowbar for like his like random item, and just like being able to sit there and laugh and be like, who would take the crowbar out of these like options when you could have a tractor? Or just like I love it. One of my favourite things, and one of the best things I think introduced in 5th edition, was like the fact you all get like a random trinket in your kit, and it's just some random piece of tat that might do something like a bit quirky. Like I think one of them's like a preserved like goblin eyeball, and like it like follows you as you sort of like you move around. Does nothing else, but it's just like a cool little thing that you can try and like build some of your character background along, or that might come into play. I played in a game that Andre ran where my dwarf had like a silver dog whistle as like his random thing, and like when we got attacked by wolves, I was like, all right, wolves are like dogs, they can hear this, so I stuck it in my mouth and I was just like blowing it constantly during the combat just to like distract them, and try and get like a bit of an edge over them, and just like that's sort of something that wouldn't have occurred to me if I hadn't got that trinket. It just gets you to like think outside the box a little bit.
Yeah, it's an open question, right? Because it gives you no context for the thing.
Yeah.
You roll, and then you have a brass orb with like strange runes on it.
Yeah,
Why?
that's it.
Why do you have that thing?
Yeah, all it does, it's like, right, you've got this random thing, off you go. That's all it does. So I think that moves us on to question 21, which is which dice mechanic appeals to you? So Johannes, do you want to fill that one?
Oh, dice mechanic. Again, could use a little more definition. So I'm partial to the 2d6 from Powered by the Apocalypse. I quite enjoy dice pools. Depending on the dice pool, though, like there's a caveat there. Some dice pools are horrific because you get into the other stuff around the pool, which can be messy. But I enjoy a dice pool mechanic where you have a 50-50 chance of succeeding on each die, and then you need an X amount of successes for a thing. I quite enjoy that. Those two are probably my. Well, I should give some more context to the 2d6 from the Powered by the Apocalypse engine. So basically, the thing is, you have 3 different possible results. So if you roll 6 or less, you utterly fail, and shit will get worse. 7 to 9, you get something some of what you wanted, or you get what you wanted, but there's a cost, or something like that. And then 10 plus, you get what you wanted, and then some. So that's those two come to mind.
How about yourself, Lloyd?
If I was going to pick a dice mechanic that I absolutely love, I'm kind of a little bit torn as to what I would go for. I would have to pick the Lady Blackbird, roll a whole bunch of dice, 3, 4, 5 successes, 1, 2, 3 failures. Because of the way you pick the dice, because you normally you grab 1 dice for free, then the trait you're using, then dice according to what named tags you're using. I like that because it shows what mechanic you're using for each one and rolling it. And also, it's all just D6s, so it's not like Cortex where you have different size dice. You're just rolling nothing but D6s in one go. And 1, 2, 3 failures, 4 successes. So that's why I'm going to go with that one.
I think for me, I mean, this might be a bit of a cheat 'cause it's not solely a dice mechanic. But you know that 7th Sea game you ran for us, Lloyd?
Mm-hmm.
I quite liked, although I wasn't sold on the system as a whole, I quite like the idea that you sort of outlined your plan, then you like had your dice pool that you apportioned to like pulling off various bits of the plan, and you sort of spent your successes on it. So you might be like, okay, we're gonna knock out one of the guards, we're gonna sneak into the base, we're gonna steal this idol, we're gonna hide it in a cart, we're gonna get out, we're gonna go down to the docks, get aboard our ship, sail away, happy days. You roll your dice pool, as far as I remember, then you apportion the successes to see which bits you do automatically, so it sort of speeds over them because you've succeeded, and it's the bits where things get a bit more complicated or a bit more difficult than you actually play out. I thought as a way of sort of like zooming out and getting like an overview of the action, and then just like zooming into the interesting bits, I thought that was quite a sort of ingenious way of doing it.
I'll take it. That's some point.
Okay, so if no one has anything else on dice mechanics, how about non-dice system? I've sort of pretty much covered mine because 7th Sea's like dice and non-dice sort of together. So how about you guys?
For me, it's going to be Nobilis. That is a game which is fairly obscure. So Nobilis is a diceless game where you play these humans or other creatures that have been imbued with parts of reality, and now you are guardians of those aspects of reality. So you could be the embodiment and thus the guardian of all toasters in the world, and the concept of toaster being, you have different like resource things to do stuff. mostly related to your areas of responsibility in reality. So if you were the toaster god, you could do toaster miracles.
Okay, I mean, I think for another one for myself, I'd probably go for anything like the tags in Power by the Apocalypse games, or aspects in Fate, and like some of the tags that like Lady Blackbird uses. Anything that allows you to describe an element of your character in a way that affects the rules, but do it using words rather than just pure numbers. So obviously I know you need numbers in like most role-playing games, but I do like games where they allow you to be a little more descriptive using like tags and aspects, but still have it have like a mechanical impact on the game. So
Yeah, that's fair.
what about yourself then, Lloyd?
I'm a little bit torn on this because I don't know what non-dice system would really like be 100% appealing. But after playing Penny for My Thoughts, which is a psychological game where we use coins pretty much, not to flip, but to give things away, I would say that would be it for me, because that even now, that game was like 10 years ago, and I still get flashbacks from that mechanical system. And I'm very glad it uses coins that are given out and not dice, because dice would have ruined that game for me.
Okay. Right, so the next question is, which game do you hope to play again? So, Lloyd.
You know what? I love Mouse Guard to freaking bits. I have played it twice in my entire life. No one is playing Mouse Guard. I want more Mouse Guard. Need Mouse Guard.
Hey man, if you run it, I'll play it.
Yeah.
No, I want to play it. I want to play it.
Well, Lloyd, I do have Mouse Guard on the shelf there. So
I want it to be run by someone who doesn't like Burning Wheel, please, if that's okay with you. I don't want you to taint it with your Burning Wheel.
Okay, so John, I think that's about it. So we can wrap up the thing right here.
Your Burning Wheel love. Having it in the house.
Okay, so what game do you hope to play again, Johannes?
10 Candles. Which
Damn.
is, yeah. This is an intense game. So 10 Candles. It is a game where the world is sort of ending, or it has ended. You sort of like play in the middle of the end of the world, and the details of the end of the world are there's no like default setting. There's some stuff in the materials which you can pick and construct your sort of situation, and the characters in that game are built on these like index cards. So you get like 4 or 5, I forget which you get, but like let's say 5 index cards. One of which is like what's your occupation, and what's like your greatest regret or whatever, and like things like this. And you construct your character with these index cards. You write on each card, and then you stack them in a specific order, and that's your character sheet. And you can use the thing that's on top that you can see right now. You can use that to sort of influence a die roll in the game, of which there isn't like that many. It's the game is played as long as these 10 candles from the name are still burning, so at least one of them. So you get 10 tea light candles, you light them all up, and you put them in the middle of the table, and you get a bowl of some material that is not flammable, preferably. And you put the bowl in the middle of the candles, and then you go around the table, each person stating a true fact about the game, and having a scene, basically. Like each one gets to describe a scene. People can be in that scene, so it's not just you doing stuff on your own. When you fail, I forget like which things you roll for in the game, because I've just played it once and it was quite intense, and my memory is somewhat jumbled. When you roll, and you maybe roll once each turn, and there's a mechanic whereby if you roll, and the dice that are not successes, those get removed, and the dice pool that you rolled gets like moved on to the next player, and they have to roll with less dice because you rolled and some of the dice that you rolled didn't succeed. So there's like an inbuilt spiral into the game whereby someone is going to fail eventually, at which point one of the candles gets snuffed out. And people can burn their character sheets to get like re-rolls or whatever in the game. So you have like 4 index cards or 5 index cards. I could burn one of my things. So I'm literally like burning parts of my character to like try and succeed in the game. And there, I forget if it was a part of the game, but we made a recording at the very beginning of the game. Like each of us sort of like talking in character to a mobile phone, which was recording, sort of like a found footage type of thing. So you record that bit in the beginning, and it's sort of like where the game starts, and the characters are still like mostly together people, and their thoughts and feelings at the start of the game. And once all the characters will get burned somewhat and all the candles get snuffed, then the game sort of tells you to like turn out the lights, so there's just darkness, and then you play out the thing that you recorded like 4 hours before, like where you started and where you ended up, so the contrast at the end of the game. The game has a lot of like ritual in it. Like there's a structure to things, how you do them. You burn the things, and you make these recordings. Very different and intense experience, I have to say. We had one first-time role player when we played that thing, and I think he left a fairly like memorable impression on her when we played that. So I didn't run the game. I was a player, and I would love to play 10 Candles again because it was weird and remarkable.
Cool. So, I mean, I think for myself, you'll know this, Janice, I spoke about it recently. Although I've run a lot of Lamentations of the Flame Princess, I've only actually really played one session of it, which is one Ian Christensen ran recently. Another one of these sort of like early morning sessions I like to like punish myself with. But really enjoyed that, and I think it does help to play games that you're running. And I would love to have a go at actually playing sort of a bit more Lamentations, just to see it from the player's perspective a little bit more. Okay, anyone else got anything on games you hope to play again?
I think that's about it.
I think that's done.
Okay, question 24. Which RPG do you think deserves greater recognition? Lloyd?
Dread. Not enough people. Like, Mouse Guard's great. I love it. Love it to bits. But there's not enough people who understand the power of playing a horror game using Jenga. I feel it's time we brought that back into the world. And I feel it's time we tried it out. I think that game deserves a lot more recognition than it already has. People need to try it out. It's a horror game. You play with a Jenga tile. And whenever you're trying to do anything, you pull the Jenga tile out. If the whole thing falls down, your character dies. That's simple. Easy enough game. Great horror game. Not enough people play it. Everyone knows about it, none of people play it.
Okay, how about yourself, Johannes?
Well, my first instinct is to go Burning Wheel, but I don't want to harp on Burning Wheel in like every question. So, I think it's going to be Mummy the Curse for
Nice.
Chronicles of Darkness, because I think Mummy caused a lot of people go, what? Much like Wraith did back in the day. And I think Mummy is brilliant, and I'm really looking forward to, they have announced it, they're making a second edition of Mummy.
Oh, nice.
And, I'm really looking forward to that.
Okay, I mean, I'd love to see a slightly cleaned up version of Mummy the Curse, because I loved some of the ideas in it, but again, some of the mechanics were a bit much for me. But In terms of an RPG, I think deserves greater recognition. I would say it's Children of the Fall from Frenzy Kitty Games, and I got sent a review copy of this, and it's one of these sort of storyteller, sort of GM-less games, and they're like Fiasco. But the scenario is you play in a sort of post-apocalyptic scenario where there's been like this disease released, and when people get to sort of adulthood, it turns them into these like horrendous sort of like rage-fueled like monster zombies. So the only people of like any intelligence and like rational thought are sort of young children and teens, and you basically play one of these young children trying to survive in this sort of new world, knowing that sooner or later when you hit a certain age that disease is going to get you. But because it's a storytelling game, you sort of like construct the settlement that your survivors live in and what resources they have as a group, and then you sort of play out selected scenes that your character and other characters get involved in. So you might be trying to scavenge something and something untoward happens. I think that's a really intriguing setting, and I'd love to see. I'd love to play some of that, and I'd like to see that get a bit of greater recognition. Okay, guys. So Johannes, name a game that has had an impact on you in the last year.
Oh. Blades in the Dark is one game. John Harper. You play a crew of scoundrels in a sort of like Victorian-esque, steampunk-ish, haunted setting. There's a lot of hacks for it coming up. So that's one game, and I think well, we don't need to spend too much time on this. So, like, Blaze in the Dark, basically. I think there's a lot of great design in that game, from downtime actions to, like, creative interpretation of, like, what the player character abilities actually mean.
Nice. Okay, Lloyd, how about yourself?
I'm gonna counter what you just said and go Scum and Villainy. So, it's Blaze in the Dark, 100%, except it's set in space!
With laser swords.
Space! And it is freaking, like, the problem with Blaze in the Dark, right, is that you're playing thieves, you're playing criminals, you've got demon summoning stuff, supposed to be all, like, in the shadows and stuff, and like, you know, those stories are cool, but they always lead to, like, dark endings, or horrible things happen to you. Whereas, don't stop. Whereas, if you call it Scum and freaking Villainy, and you set it in space, you go straight from playing like Locke Namora, and you go straight to Star Wars. And that is a way more fun setting. Way more hilarious, way more silly, way more exciting. It just works like a million times better. Scum and Villainy is everything I wanted Blaze in the Dark to be, that it wasn't.
Okay, so staying with the theme of sort of like darker games, I'm going to go... my choice is For Coin and Blood, which is an OSR game, and it's basically an OSR game that pretty much goes, oh well, you know how in like a lot of D&D games people are supposed to be playing heroic adventurers, and they end up playing basically mass murderers and sort of shady thieves and stuff like that. For Coin and Blood just sort of says, right, well, let's not sugarcoat it, let's just start with that concept, and it espouses a more sort of, I don't want to say realistic world, but a more sort of grim world where your characters are part of like a syndicate effectively, and you're like playing like the blackguards and the thieves and the tyrants and stuff like that, and it's all about you working your way up within this sort of syndicate in a slightly darker version of a traditional D&D world, and sort of getting yourself to the top of that sort of organization, so you're like the criminal mastermind effectively. And it's very familiar sort of OSR mechanics, but it has some quite cool stuff in, like for how you can advance in organisations and extra stuff you can get. And I just thought it was like a very interesting spin, sort of taking the traditional sort of D&D style game, turning it on its head, but sort of saying, well, actually, this is sort of what a lot of people end up playing anyway, but let's like hard bake that into the session and into the setting.
Yeah, I've got that as well. Really good stuff in it.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a game I'd love to run at some point in the future.
Strangely, that game is not on my gaming shelf. How weird, huh?
That's because you don't like OSR, Lloyd. It's not written on the back of like a postage stamp or an envelope. Or
Hey, I don't like that game not because it's OSR. I don't like that game because it's too dark.
Games can never be too dark, Lloyd.
It's so weird.
Okay, so my weirdness aside, Lloyd, what's your gaming ambition for the next year?
Well, I've done Gen Con now, so that's out of the way. Honestly, it is to double the amount of people I have at Games on Demand. After doing Gen Con and seeing how those boys roll, and those boys roll, Gen Con Games on Demand boys roll hard. I mean, like, I was like, oh man, I bet it's not gonna be too different. I mean, that must be something. So because they were like, follow me if you want to know how to play games. I was like, oh my god, it is like way better than anything I thought about. I would kill for their numbers. I would like to double the amount of people I have in to 50 people playing games at Games on Demand at UK Games Expo. That's my goal for next year. I don't know how I'm gonna do it because I'm gonna need a lot of GMs. I mean, we're talking a lot of GMs. But that's what I want. I want to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely cool, and that is a laudable aim. I mean, I think for myself, my gaming ambitions are probably a little bit humbler. To be honest, I'd just like to be able to find more time to be able to like run more games, because I've had to like trim down the amount of games I'm running at the moment to the point where I'm literally just like running the one campaign. But as I said earlier on, I've always got like more ideas for games, so I'd like to do some more one shots. I'm looking at running some stuff for like Com+1. Obviously I still want to be involved in like Games on Demand next year. I'd just like to be able to run more games effectively. That'd be my ambition. Okay, so week 5, guys, last 5 questions. Come on, final burst of energy. Okay, so question 27 is, share a great stream or actual play.
Happy Jack's RPG podcast do actual plays, and they have one for the 4th edition of Legend of Five Rings. I highly recommend because Legend of Five Rings is about to drop. That game's about to drop hard on the stores. So, if you want to try and check that game out and you want to know how the world is like, maybe not the rules, highly recommend that game. Give it a shot, see how they play it, because Legend of Five Rings is less about the rules and more about the setting.
I'd say for myself, any sort of games that Andre Martinez runs, I know he's getting into his like new edition of like Vampire quite hard. He runs quite a lot of D&D, and just like he does like quite a lot on his like Dork Vision channel. The amount of energy that and sort of like love and sort of energy that guy puts into his games just makes it, and I'm lucky enough to play in a few, just shines through in the games he runs, whether it's D&D, Vampire, or whatever. Or I mean, he was one of the reasons why I originally started playing the FFG Star Wars game, just because he brought that setting and that game to life so much for me, even though I only played in a couple of his games, because I watched a few of the games he'd run, and just the sheer, like I say, love of the hobby and effort he puts into his games, I think really shines through.
So for me, I don't watch that many streams or live plays, but I do listen to a lot of them while at work, and I just have a lot of them on the background. But I think one of the first that I actually followed to any consistent degree was one of the earlier role-play campaigns from It Me JB on Twitch and YouTube. There was a Shadowrun, I think, 1st edition campaign ran by Adam Kogel and some fairly like prominent YouTubers as the player characters. The thing is, Shadowrun, I think we probably all have our opinions about Shadowrun as a system, but the game evolved due to the interests of the people playing it into this sort of like weird situation where like it was about people who should not ever be shadow running in their lives. Like they're not suitable for it, and they're more about having friendships and whatever. And it was an contrast with the way that you imagine Shadowrun to be, which is, oh, we're like trenchcoat ninjas in the shadows, and I also have magic. And instead it turned into like this relationship simulator thing. And I quite enjoyed that. You can look it up on YouTube. It's Me JP, and the campaign was called Mirror Shades. I really enjoyed that.
Also, side note, Adam Cobb was a really nice guy in person. He was actually really nice. He was just so humble and chill. I was like, wow. Anyway, carry on.
No, I was done. So I think we're done with the 27. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so, I think 28. Who's inspiring gaming excellence you're grateful for. Sort of overlaps a little bit. I mean, I've obviously already covered sort of mentioning Andre. Another person who plays in the D&D games that Andre runs, whose roleplay I always enjoy, is a guy called John Poland, who plays a character called a sort of Harveling thief style character called Fitzpatrick Weatherby, who is a follower of Timora, like the goddess of luck. And I think with Harveling, certainly in my experience, it's very easy to play them as sort of like jokey, sort of like, you know, so almost like leprechaun-esque style, like cat tricksters. Whereas even before I was playing in the game with that character, having watched some of the actual plays, the amount of sort of like range of emotions he gets with that character, and he always seems to bring that sort of level of like energy and intensity to other characters I've seen him play. So I think John Poland would certainly be my pick for. I always find the way he sort of role plays his characters quite inspiring for myself, and it always makes me want to sort of like step my own characters up to match that.
What about you, Johannes? Johannes?
I don't know if I have an answer to this because I don't necessarily work this way. I don't know if I think about this at all. Obviously there's people I really enjoy playing with, but gaming excellence makes me think something else, which I don't know if I have an actual answer for. Well, as a cheap answer, well, everyone who's run a game, because I really appreciate people who run games, and sometimes it's pretty hard to do that, and I think it's an excellent thing whenever someone does so, whether it's at like convention doing games on demand like you crazy people do, and or if it's just a home game with your family and friends. So yeah, that's my cheap answer to that. I don't have an actual answer. So.
It's all good, man. How about yourself, Lloyd?
I'm about to answer, but you sure you guys can't think of anyone else who's inspiring gaming excellence you're grateful for? Anyone, guys?
No, I think that's about it.
Guys, are you sure you can't think of anyone else? Guys?
Yeah,
guys?
yeah. I mean...
Guys, anyone? Anyone? Wow.
So Adam Cope was pretty good.
Oh, you're dead. Okay, if I had to pick one person who's gaming excellence I'm grateful for, it's probably going to be a guy called Lowell Francis who runs Games for the Gauntlet. Lowell, I feel, is white me, but with more restrictions. All the games he runs and the way he runs them, I'm always like, oh man, that's exactly how I would do it. Like, it's crazy. I'm like, wait, how did you do that? I gotta steal that. And I basically steal his stuff that he uses for it. he writes a blog called Age of Ravens that was up for Emmys and everything.
Oh yeah, man.
Like,
Yeah,
he
I know
puts a lot
that.
of he does a lot of Fate stuff, does a lot of Blades in the Dark stuff. He's writing his own BTB system called Legends of Wulin. Like, he's putting a lot of effort in. Like, all of the stuff that he does, I'm always like, wow, boy, I wish I was that cool. He's like a better role-playing version of me. And I'm always like, oh man, I gotta learn all this stuff again. And I got to see him at Gen Con for 5 seconds before he left me. Bastard. But like, it was really cool. And like, one of those things where I was starstruck, because Lowell's games are always amazing and I never get in them. That's my answer.
Okay, so then Lloyd, how about a friendship you have because of RPGs? Question 29.
John, it's you. John, it's you.
Mr. Darcy.
Well, actually, it's a perfectly logical sentence. Like, I wouldn't have Games on Demand if you hadn't decided to, like, jump in on top of it, you and Wits. I would have been doing it by myself. And running game, like, the reason why we are friends is because your wife came up to me 4 years ago at Dragon Meet and randomly handed me a token with your name on it. I went, you should listen to my husband's podcast. I said, I don't know why she sounds like that. She does my head. This is my husband's like YouTube channel. He does a whole bunch of stuff. I'm like, who are you, woman? But she came and did that, and then I got to know who you were, and it's been a roller coaster ride because of that. So if I'm gonna mention a friendship I have because of RPGs, I'm gonna mention you like easily, because out of everyone else, that was natural. Yours was.
And I mean, what can I say, man? You're the only. You're one of the few people who's like visited my home and left like a lasting impact, and by that I mean I've still got like 2 jars of like lemon and passion fruit curd in the fridge.
Is that still in the fridge?
Yeah, of course it is.
Eat the thing.
No, I mean, I'm saving it for you. It's curd. It lasts for ages.
You could have brought it to UK Games. Was it UK Games Expo?
I know, but I keep forgetting. I'll bring you in the future.
Oh my god! Just eat it.
And I mean, just to expand upon that, I mean, I think everyone I sort of game with regularly, I mean, obviously we're not friends in the case of like we don't see each other every day and stuff like that. But as we were saying earlier, I think if you game regularly with someone, it's because you enjoy their company, you enjoy their style of play, etc. So I pretty much say that not only would my circle of sort of gamers be smaller if I didn't do like the online gaming, but certainly like the people who I regard as friends now has expanded to like people in like other countries. I mean,
John, you have to mention a single name. There's not this cop-out answer. You gotta mention someone. It's gotta be someone else.
I've got. Let me think.
You gotta pick someone to mention. I'm sorry, I will not accept a cop-out answer for this one. This is a friendship question. You've got to pick someone.
Okay, in which case I'm going to say Rob Davis.
Oh, cool.
Because both myself and Rob, we have very different ideas about what makes a good game. We both tend to run different systems. We were both in different time zones. He's obviously over in like, Nova Scotia. I'm over here in the UK. But because we've sort of met in that sort of space in between where, as we were saying earlier, where you're all on the same sort of playing field because of RPGs, it got us talking about the differences between our two games rather than just sort of going, oh, well, I like this and you're wrong, or, well, I like this and you're wrong. It got us like talking about those differences, and we still like, even if we're not playing so many games with each other now, we still like chat on like social media and stuff like that, which wouldn't have happened without RPGs. And obviously, goes without saying yourself as well, Lloyd, because we wouldn't have met without RPGs.
It's fair, but it's fine you mentioned Rob's name. That's okay.
You know, don't you getting too up yourself, man.
That's fine. How about you, Johannes? Who are you gonna mention? No cop-out answers like last time, Johannes. It's gonna be a name. It doesn't have to be mine. It's
well,
fine. I'll accept it.
I'm going to say Lloyd G, on the condition that he agrees to play Burning Wheel with me.
Never in my fucking life.
Great. So next question. No. Yeah. Basically, it's most of the people that I play with in like face-to-face games, I've been acquainted with and/or friends with before we started playing, or we met playing board games. So I don't think I actually have too many of those that I became friends with because of RPGs. There was something else before that, and then then once we were like, well, I guess we're sort of friends now. And then I was probably like, behold my whole stack of books on the shelf. These are weird.
To be fair, man, I was expecting you to say like, oh, when you first met your wife, your eyes met across a burning wheel source book.
No. We were playing what's it called? Dead of Winter, actually.
Oh, I don't know that.
A zombie war game. Yeah.
That's so and terrible.
Yeah, and I think we died horribly, so that was important. But yeah, people that I've played with, essentially, like my entry into this whole thing, the reason why I'm here is because Jason was starting a Shadows of Estrin campaign, and I randomly noticed Jason's video about that, like, hey, I'm starting this thing on YouTube, and I commented on YouTube, hey, I really enjoy Shadows of Estrin. I would like to play, says random man. And it's sort of spiraled in from there. So I kind of became friends with Jason's friends, which includes John. And then now I've been playing with John a lot, so I've like become friends with the people that John plays with, excluding, of course, Lloyd Jan here, because we apparently there is a great big burning wheel between us, and it's just, yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay, so the next question 30, is share something you have learned about playing your character. Again, I think this is a bit of a vague question. I'd be lying if I said I was entirely sure what it means, but...
Mm-hmm.
We can tackle it anyway. I can go first if you like.
Yeah, go for it.
I learned that my idea of fun is not everyone else's ideas of fun. And when I make my character and I'm going inside and playing it, I have to remember that other people may not enjoy the thing I do the same way I do. Gaming has made me a bit more emphatic. I can't pronounce the word.
Empathetic.
Is it just empathetic? That seems weird. Empathetic about the way people feel. And
it's empathic.
Oh my god! And every time I play my character, I have to remember that other people have feelings too. And that's the thing I learned about playing my character.
I think the thing I've learned about from playing various characters is that like every person, every character has their sort of core beliefs that they won't budge on. So most people are like fairly flexible on a number of different things, but I think everyone has a few things that they will not budge on, and if you try and sort of push them beyond that, they will react in sort of often extreme ways. It's like in the game that Ian Christensen ran for Lamentations of the Flame Princess I was talking about earlier. We basically were in like an Innsmouth style village, sort of Deep One's cultists, the works, and we found out that these ceremonies resulted in like these like Deep One hybrids, these like half-breed like children. And one of the people we came across, and what he used to do is he used to like kill all these children, throw them into a burial pit, along with like any sacrifices. One of the people we were introduced to was an NPC who was like a young woman from the village who was pregnant with one of these like half Deep One children, and she was trying to escape because she didn't want a child to get killed. And I was like playing sort of like a gruff, tough, like fighting character who'd sort of like come from a background where he'd had to like look after his sick mother and stuff like that. And we got to a point where like other people were like, oh, we've got more important things to do than like save this woman. Like, other NPCs were like, oh yeah, we've got to go and get this gold. We'll worry about the woman later. And it was that point with my character where I was just like, as far as he's concerned, the most important thing here is like getting this woman out of this village, saving her and a kid, and then we'll like worry about everything else. And it was that sort of like one little thing that character would not budge on. So they could say whatever they want, and he was like, no, I'll make sure this woman and a kid get to safety, then I'll worry about anything else. So I think that's what I've learnt from playing various characters.
Cool.
Like I answered like 2 hours ago to a different question. I think you learn a lot about social interaction in general as you play games, if you're willing to, at least. And what have I learned about playing my character?
Praise Dagon.
Yeah, I've learned that Dagon is the bestest. No. I've learned, well, the question is kind of wonky, but, I have learned that RPGs can sometimes be used, whether consciously or subconsciously, by some people as a form of therapy, which, when done without prior consent from the other people at the table, is not a good thing to do. So I was playing in a game where that sort of happened. So from someone else was playing, and they didn't realize that they were actually doing it, and that caused a fair bit of quoi to happen. So RPGs as a form of relaxation, great. Actual therapy, you're gonna need a professional for that.
Okay, so last question, guys, and this is share why you take part in RPGaDay, and I'm going to jump in first on this. And I would say to me, I've participated in the last sort of 2 or 3 years RPGaDay, sort of releasing it on YouTube, sort of doing 1 video a day, whereas obviously we're just doing them all in one in a podcast this time. Now, I honestly wasn't going to do it this year, just purely because I find trying to put out a video each day is very difficult to do. So I'd end up recording a load or missing some and then having to run to catch up. And also, I find just just me sitting talking to a camera about sort of what I like about RPGs a little bit self-indulgent. I mean, I don't mind sort of doing a quick video where I'm ranting about something, or doing a podcast episode, or doing a review or something, but just me sort of going, right, here's 31 or whatever videos of me just talking about shit I like. I found a bit self-indulgent, and I often struggled to think of things to say, whereas one of the advantages of the way we're doing it this time, although it's say it's all jammed together, is when I suggested, is there anyone up for recording an episode of the podcast with me? And Johanna suggested, why don't we do the RPGaDay stuff? What made me interested in it was the fact that it wasn't just going to be myself sort of sitting in the echo chamber, sort of spieling off what I like. I was going to be able to listen to what you guys were saying, and that would also give me some other ideas for stuff that maybe I wouldn't have considered otherwise. And that's a sort of microcosm of what I like about RPGs. It's getting multiple people all to sort of put things into the mix and making something that's greater than the sum of its parts.
I would like to say why I take part in RPGaDay. I don't take part in RPGaDay. I'm literally being forced by chains to do it today. Literally that. I'm sorry, I just don't do it because I can't be bothered.
Yeah, we had to force Lloyd into the chains. That's how that worked.
Literally how it happened.
Chain boy.
It's just one of these days Lloyd's going to accept that he's a black version of me. So
that is never going to happen. One thing, you don't have my hair.
True. I also lack the sultry voice, but I can dream, Lloyd. I can dream. Okay, so
you, Hannes, go on, run us off.
Take us home.
Take us home, son.
It's not the fireworks that's supposed to be at the end of a marathon like this that I'm I'm here because I wanted to do a podcast thing with John, and I couldn't think of other topics of like that I could just spout random shit about when I'm tired. so this is what I came up with.
So much.
Yeah. Well,
I mean-
Lloyd, I'll make it up to you somehow one day. Maybe I'll run some games on demand. Wink, wink.
No, you won't. You have to come to. Actually, what? If you come to fucking UK Games Expo, I will have a bed ready for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
Take my advice, Johannes. Don't fall for that line. It always ends in tears.
at the end, Lloyd's just gonna take me to like a dark alleyway and take out the pistol, put the silencer in, and be like, "That was fun, but this is for burning real." I'll never be heard from again.
But in all seriousness, I do think RPGaDay does have, especially for like people who are maybe a bit newer to sort of like the whole YouTube or like podcasting, it is quite useful because you can watch, even if you don't watch all the videos that people put out, you can watch some of them and you can sort of get an insight into what people's likes and dislikes are to do with RPGs. And I think, to be honest, that for the people who produce the questions, it must be quite, I mean, like I said, this is the 5th year. It must be quite difficult each year to come up with a different spread of questions without just like endlessly repeating yourselves. And yeah, as we've said, some of the questions this year, they're a little bit ambiguous, or they're a little bit difficult to answer, or they repeat themselves a bit. But I think inevitably that's bound to happen as it sort of like goes on. But I do still think it's useful, and it's nice for sort of getting a view of what other people are liking and not liking in the world of RPGs. So, do either of you two guys have any final thoughts before we wrap up this marathon RPGaDay 2018? That's right.
Yes, this has been a fantastic 3 hours of my life that I will treasure always, and I love that I've spent it with both of you. Thank you very much, and hopefully you won't get voicemails this time.
Did you ever get hunted down by OSR people, by the way? At the...
No, that's not till Dragon Meat, so I'm good. I mean, hey, if there always are people who I can't remember the guy who I think it was Colin or something.
Yeah, Colin.
Come to Dragon and come say hello. I'll buy you a pint if you're listening to this at this point.
Well, I did say to Colin, I was like, well, I probably won't find it too difficult to track Lloyd down since I'm normally staying with him when I'm down at Dragon Meat. So I just steer my head out the door. Where's Lloyd? Oh, there he is. But yeah, I hopefully do some Dragon Meat, and like I say, it's always nice to like meet people in person as well. So if you've listened to this mammoth podcast, which I may split up afterwards, I'm not sure, I'll see how it goes, but hope you've enjoyed listening to this. Thanks to Johannes and thanks to Lloyd for joining me on this, and I'm going to end the recording now, so we'll see you later. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
So that's it for this episode. If you have any questions or suggestions for things you'd like to see in the podcast in future, please either email them to reddicediaries@gmail.com or drop me a voicemail at Anchor. Until I see you next time, wherever you're playing, take care and enjoy yourselves.